Welcome. We have the next of our series on complexity conversations hosted by the New England Complex Systems Institute, bringing together pioneers and deep thinkers from across disciplines to help us understand how complexity science, complex systems thinking helps us understand and engage in the world. Today, I'm so pleased to introduce Professor Hiroki Sayama. He began his work in complexity as the first postdoctoral researcher at NEXI, and over the years, he has become one of the most respected voices in complex system science, education, and research. His path has been one of creativity, dedication, and deep inquiry. He became one of the core teachers in NEXI's summer and winter school programs, helping to form understanding of complexity for students and professionals from around the world. Hiroki is a professor at Binghamton University, and he has multiple appointments in system science, in biomedical engineering and computer science, and probably a few others I'm not aware of. He directs the Center for Collective Dynamics of Complex Systems, where he is looking at everything from swarm behavior and artificial life to network dynamics and open-ended evolution. He is an amazing educator. He has a textbook which is freely available, Introduction to the Modeling and Analysis of Complex Systems, which has become foundational resource for those entering the field. It makes science accessible, but does not sacrifice depth. What stands out in Hiroki's work is his ability to use rigorous analysis and develop understanding of emergent behaviors, always looking for the unexpected patterns that arise from interaction, feedback, and evolution, whether modeling opinion dynamics, evolutionary games, or self-organizing systems. His works offers deep insight into how interactions and dynamical rules give rise to global outcomes. Please join me in welcoming a valued colleague, a brilliant thinker, and a long-standing contributor to complexity science and NEXI, Professor Hiroki Sayama.
Thank you very much, Yanir. And it means a lot to me that Yanir, my previous advisor, they introduced me in such a kind way. So that means a lot. Thank you very much. And thank you, Kim, for hosting this session. It's my great pleasure to have this opportunity. And thank you, everyone, for joining this session. You may hear my voice a little bit stuffy-nosed kind of sound because I have a severe allergy to the seasonal pollens. So you may hear me sneezing, coughing, in the middle. So please bear with me. Yeah. So today I would like to give you a relatively brief presentation about my own research, which has a lot of overlaps with the previous conversation you had with Sandy Pentland. He talked about opinion dynamics and how the ideas are generated in the social networks. I do many of my own research pretty much in the similar domain. So today I just want to briefly mention the one fairly recent experimental study we did for the small-scale collective design teams, and followed by the much larger scale social network evolution simulations. The smaller systems are easier to study because you can do the actual human subject experiments. But when it comes to the social network evolution, it's very difficult to get the experimental data. So you need to resort to the computer simulation, first principle-based simulation studies. And I have a bunch of slides, but I don't want to make this as a formal lecture type of stuff. And if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me at any time. You can post your question to the meeting chat. I can respond to quickly. Or if you prefer, you can also unmute yourself and ask question verbally. That's also fine with me. So hopefully some of the materials I'm going to present here can be useful for either scientific research or the actual business practice. I think that some of you are coming from the private sectors or even the public domain, public sectors. I hope that you can get some insight from this. Okay, with that, I'm going to start. The first part is about experimental research that was recently published in the NPJ Complexity. This is the paper. I'm very proud of this paper. Yeah, this was done by a group of people involving lots of engineers in the Binghamton University, as well as the researchers and students coming from the School of Management. So we have been collaborating for many, many years. And this particular paper took 7 or 8 years to complete, partly because of the COVID-19 that stopped many of the research tasks, but also because this is highly interdisciplinary work. And as you probably know, if your work is highly interdisciplinary, you have a higher difficulty of getting published because reviewers may not understand. But basically what we did was to run the online-based experiment, having the bunch of people coming together, logging into the system, and collaborate anonymously to create some kind of ideas. And we tested several different experimental settings, changes of those experimental settings to see under what kind of conditions the teams, collectives going to perform well, depending on the criteria. So let me just briefly mention what we did. So here's a question. The word diversity, that's a buzzword nowadays in science, especially NSF. The word diversity used to be a very positive thing you need to include in the proposal. And nowadays it's going to be a very touchy word that you may want to carefully avoid using it, rephrase it. But here in this research, I am not talking about that kind of diversity. So we are not talking about the racial diversity, cultural diversity, gender. None of them is the focus here. This diversity in this study is really about true diversity of each one of us. So how we behave, what kind of knowledge, background, expertise each one of us has. And we create a team of diverse background knowledge because we need it in order to tackle many complex problems. So aside from those demographic, political, superficial diversity, let's look at the deeper functional diversity and see how that kind of diversity interacts with the social network structure. And we experimented that in this online study. So what we did was to create a very easy to operate, simple in-house built Twitter or X-like interface running in our in-house server. So this was written by using Python Flask, and you just log in to this kind of very minimalistic interface, and here's a task given, and your job is to log into this server about 10 to 15 minutes every day, and then collaborate with each other to come up with better ideas. So here's one example. So some users are posting some ideas, and you can also like existing ideas, or you can also post comments. You can put the new ideas. It's a very simple timeline-based collaborative environment. And if you want to learn more about the details, there is a paper talking specifically about this experimental settings. So by using this minimalistic online social media kind of interface, what we did with the actual human subjects is to create a catchy sales slogan or catchphrase, tagline, whatever you want to call it, to sell some mediocre laptop. There's really no specific thing you can mention, but you need to come up with a really clever, creative slogan to do the marketing for this very average laptop. That's one task. Another task we also tested just to see the variation between tasks is to write a complete fictional story within the very short text space. And this is actually obvious by looking at experimental data. The first one is a very collaborative task. People want to like others' ideas. They can modify, and they just keep evolving the ideas one after another. You see the clear lineage of idea evolution in the first case. But in the second case, each post is a completed story. Very few people are going to make a modification to it. So the first one is collaboration driven. Second one is not really based on the collaboration. And the results we saw are actually different between those two. And here's some experimental data setting details, but I'm going to skip because I already explained that. There are 10 days, 10 working days. 2 weeks of their participation here. Each day, everybody is going to join at least 15 minutes a day. And once they complete all the sessions, they're going to submit the final best ideas. So which idea they thought would be the best coming from their observed timeline. So that's basically what we did. And one technical innovation in this experiment compared to more traditional social science studies is that we use machine learning. Now, using AI machine learning sounds so average nowadays, but keep in mind, we have been working on this project for 7 years or 8 years already. So back in the 2017 and 18, that was such a cool idea, research tool to use. So there was no ChatGPT back then. We used the methodologies called the semantic embedding tools, specifically Word2Vec, Doc2Vec. They were already available back in the 2017-18. So we use that kind of machine learning embedding tools to quantify ideas. Ideas are written in the human text, but you can convert that into the numerical vector. So for example, here's one potential catchphrase for selling a laptop. That's a text. You can put that into the Doc2Vec model. That's going to convert it into a 100-dimensional numerical vector. It's a location in the high-dimensional idea space by which you can measure which ideas are similar to each other by looking at the distance, cosine similarity, etc. So that way we can map out how ideas are explored in the high-dimensional idea space. That was revolutionary back then. Nowadays, it's one of the standard techniques. And the other use of the same AI machine learning tools we used is to quantify the people's diverse background. So this is yet another part. At the very beginning of the participation experiment, every single participant was requested to write a fairly long self-introductory essay, like several thousand characters they need to type in. So talking about who they are, what kind of background expertise they have, what are their hobbies, what their career goals, etc. It's a free-form essay, but they have to provide large enough amount of text to represent who they are. And this was also converted to a numerical vector. In this case, we use a much larger size dimension, 400 dimensional, because the amount of text is much, much larger. So this numerical vector, we call it the background vector. This is used to measure who is similar to whose and who is different from whom, to control the spatial distribution of the deeper functional diversities. So those are two things we did to quantify the ideas and human participants' backgrounds. Now I'm going to talk about the experimental conditions. So one condition is spatial. This is a very sparsely connected network where people are only able to look at nearest neighbors' ideas. Very sparse, few connections. And the second condition is a fully connected network. This is the other extreme. Everybody can see everybody else's ideas. And here I usually ask a question to the audience. Which one do you think will be better? Any ideas? Sparse or fully connected? Whatever better means. You can post it to your prediction to the meeting chat if you want. Yeah. So I don't have to wait until the other people don't jump in. But usually when sparse, oh, great. Thank you, Burton. You are right, actually. Okay. So most of the time, 95% to 99% of time, when I ask this question to general public, everybody says the fully connected network will be better because we are so immersed in the connectivity-driven world. We strongly believe that connection is better. And in this experiment, we discovered the opposite. The sparse spatial network actually performed better in multiple metrics. I'm going to show you the examples. So these are the plots showing the performance of sessions between the clustered, spatially clustered sparse network on the left and fully connected networks on the right. And the metrics includes how many ideas are generated. That's the first plot. Well, there were no differences. So the activity was pretty much the same. But if you look at the average distance between generated ideas, clearly the spatially clustered sparse network produce more diversities of generated ideas. It's very statistically significant. And these are the utility scores of the final submitted ideas. Utilities of ideas, qualities are evaluated by third-party experts like marketing measures coming from business school. Those are people who did not participate in the experiment. And this is statistically not so strong because number of sessions we ran was very small. But given the small sample size, the difference is very interesting. So the highest score tend to happen more frequently in the spatially clustered networks, and average score, all the submitted final ideas, they tend to be better, also moderate to significantly better compared to the fully connected networks. And this is kind of puzzling if you come from the school where the connection is always good. Connection is a source of innovation. Connection is a source of creativity. Well, we see that spatially clustered sparse network actually did better. Why? That's the big question. And this was actually predicted by another computational model. We published a paper several years ago. Without going to the detail, we tested small world networks, scale-free networks, and random networks, and how as the group size gets bigger and bigger, which network configuration produced better results. And this simulation result also showed that small world networks, meaning that network is not really fully connected, but it's a very sparse and locally clustered, they actually performed better. So this was actually predicted by the simulation model as well. And I see a question from Lauren. Did I test anonymize the use input in the fully connected networks? All of the inputs are anonymous. Yeah. And more interestingly and puzzlingly, this is the result, again, coming from the sparse and fully connected network in terms of the participants' subjective evaluation, how well each group did. So this is the overall experience. Definitely fully connected networks have to show the better scores of the post-session survey. Quality of final designs. This is very significant. People who participated in the fully connected networks believe that they actually did much, much better than spatially connected networks. And amount of contribution, it's about the same. And mutual learning, how much you learned about your colleagues, even though they are all anonymized. It's very, very significantly higher for the fully connected network. And this shows us a contradiction. Objectively, the performance of the sparse network is better, but subjectively, people who participate in the fully connected network felt great. So this might actually indicate that we are in the illusion. If we are all in the fully connected network, we feel so good because you saw many, many ideas flowing in your timeline, and you put a lot of confidence about the final quality of ideas, even though the previous slides showed that it's actually not the case. So it's a very interesting, the contradiction between collective level performance and individual level perception. And if you are the manager of the team, this gives you the question, which way should I go? If you make networks sparser, it might actually make the final product better, but at the cost of the satisfaction of your employee. They may complain, hey, there is no much interaction, it's so boring, and I have to do a lot of work myself, etc. We actually receive that kind of complaints coming from students on the who participate in spatially clustered network. So that's actually a trade-off between the individual satisfaction and final collective performance. Very difficult problem to solve, in my opinion. And the other experimental setting we tested was the 3 different conditions, how you should arrange the different expertise. One is the associative background distribution, meaning that similar people are going to be sitting next to each other. The opposite is the disassociative background distribution. So you are most likely connected to the person who is very different from you. And then the middle condition here is just random. So again, any guesses which one's going to be better or worse, depending on the pattern of connectivity? Thank you, Alberto. Assortative. Great. Any other thoughts? Random? Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, great. Random. Okay, this is interesting. The answer was actually depends on the what kind of thing you want to do. I can just disclose. Each and every of those three conditions did better than others depending on different metrics. I'm going to show you. So here's the result of the average distance between ideas. So if your objective is to maximize the variation of the coming output, then definitely you should use associative condition. So if people are talking to others who are similar to each other, they tend to diverge in different directions. So the entire network might be ring-shaped, but this part of the network might be exploring one direction. This part might be going the other directions. So in total, they produce a lot more diverse ideas. And this was clear that this happened only for collaboration-driven tasks. The story writing task did not show any differences. So that means this difference is coming from the interaction between people. And this is the highly speculative results because we have only 4 sessions. So don't ask me anything about the statistical significance. But among the 4 sessions we were able to run, always, this is very interesting, always a random session produced among the best idea across all of these 3 sessions. So each curve represents one particular semester. We ran 3 sessions. So, and of course, from semester to semester, there are some major differences because sometimes we recruited more engineers, sometimes we recruited more management science students. But overall, in every semester you look at, always a random background assignment produced the highest score. And if you look at the average score, which is very interesting, always, in among the 4 sessions, always the disassociative arrangement produced the best average score. All of these are very puzzling, inconsistent results coming from the very few number of the sessions. So we stepped back and then thought about how to understand this, all in the consistent view. And then one working hypothesis we came up with is that maybe this is evolutionary dynamics we are witnessing. So idea generation can be considered as the ecology of replicating ideas. Each person's brain is an ecosystem. It's an island. The ideas, many ideas are going to be living there, and then some successful ones going to replicate and then migrate from one island to another. And then that idea just migrated from one island to another will be subject to selection. So this is Japanese letter A, R. So this person generated a new idea from A to R, and then that is conveyed to another person. This person does not really understand the meaning, so it's going to be a thumbs down. So it's going to be selected against, like that. So in this case, each human individual is not necessarily the purely active, agent, but also it's going to be a part of the environment, which is spatially clustered. Now everything looks like a spatial evolutionary ecology, and then many of the experimental results we got actually makes a lot of sense in this particular viewpoint. For example, this is obvious. If the habitat, by the way, Marcus and Yanni are the expert in this kind of studies, if the habitat is ring-shaped, it's a very spatially heterogeneous pattern formation process. One part can go to one direction, another part can go another direction. So diversity, biodiversity harbored by this kind of environment must be very, very high. The connection creates a gene flow, biologically speaking, that quickly homogenizes all the idea space, idea distribution, that necessarily kills the idea diversity, which is very obvious from the evolutionary spatial ecology type of studies. And also, from the same viewpoint, if you look at these 3 different layouts of background, you can consider this associative arrangement as a landscape which is locally consistent, nearby. So one part might be all the computer scientists. So if that's the case, for the ideas, it's very easy to satisfy a bunch of computer scientists lining up. So it's very easy for them to replicate just by satisfying one particular criteria. This side might be artists. This side might be mathematicians. But from the viewpoint of ideas, it's fairly consistent landscape. And that's why they go more like exploration-oriented evolutionary dynamics. I believe the Sandy Pentland also discussed exploration versus exploitation. So this also applies here. The other extreme is that this is a nightmare for any evolving ideas. You just satisfied computer scientist, but in order to move to the next person is artist. You need to satisfy that person also. Then next one is the business manager. So there are many, many criteria you need to satisfy for as an idea to thrive in this environment. It's a very tough, challenging, conservative landscape. So you have to be very fail-proof. You have to be very conservative. The average, the quality should be good enough to meet all the requirements. So this is more like an exploitation-driven dynamical process. And the random is basically the best of both worlds. It's between the exploration-oriented and the exploitation-oriented. This might be the best environment in which really the best idea can come out. So this is how we try to interpret these experimental results. I hope this gives you some insight. Okay. So can I move on to the second part very quickly? If you have any question about the first part, I'd be happy to answer. Oh, good? Yeah. So let me move on to the second part very quickly. So this is a simulation-based approach. What if the opinion, idea dynamics are coupled with the social network evolution so that not just ideas, but also, thank you very much, Len. Yeah. Not just ideas evolution, but also the ideas also influence the dynamical changes of the social networks. And this is called adaptive networks in dynamical system communities and complex networks communities. This has been around for the last 15 years or so, but it has been always difficult to mathematically analyze this. Not to mention getting data, the large-scale data of the co-evolution of opinions on social networks. Basically, there's no such data set available even at this point. It's getting harder and harder to get such large-scale data set. So that's why we resort to the artificial society computer simulations. So what we have been studying, it's one of the many different models, is just ordinary differential equations. Everybody loves differential equations. So here is a very simple opinion dynamics. Sandy Pentland also discussed something similar before. X is a node state. It's opinion, continuous value. They always try to approach the local average. It's a social conformity. And this basically represents our inherent behavior. We want to become similar to our neighbors. And the opinion can also dynamically fluctuate at some random fluctuation term. And the second equation is for edge weights. How the edge connections between, from the node J to node I, no, I to J, I forgot which way is which, going to be changing. So we put two different mechanisms. One is homophily. If your opinion is similar to someone else's opinions, you're going to put more trust to that person. So this is going to push up the connection weights. The attention to novelty is yet another mechanism. If you want to get more novel information from your neighbors, if someone's opinion stands out compared to the local average, you may want to pay a little bit more attention to that person. So this is the basic setup we published several years ago, and it has been used for a couple of different simulation-based studies. And the key parameters are A for attention to novelty, H for homophily, and C for social conformity, plus two additional threshold parameters I'm going to show you. So these are some samples of the function f and a, f of h and f of a. So how the link weight changes based on the opinion difference between you and someone else. This is homophily. If the opinion is closer than the threshold, you put more trust. If the opinions are more different than the threshold, you reduce the trust. So that's the one functional form. And attention to novelty is almost the opposite, although the details are slightly different. The more different opinions compared to the social average, you're going to put more attention to it, etc. So these are the threshold values, and they can change this way. And also the parameter value, like A and H, basically changes the slope. So those are the parameters you can explore by using systematic computer simulations. And this is how the solution looks like, animated. Each dot represents a variable X. I forgot how many nodes I simulated here, maybe 100, 200. Let me run it one more time. So the color represents the blue means negative, blue, green is negative, orange, red is positive. And then node state can change dynamically. And also the connectivities between nodes, those are the edge weights W. They also change based on the opinion states. So under the typical parameter settings, society can get fragmented like this. Red goes one edge, blue goes, green goes another edge, and the connection gets sparser and sparser and sparser. Essentially, this is a very big S-shaped curve that maps all the social constituents into one-dimensional manifold. This is one example. Okay, and it has been known that this model and many other prior models tend to show what is called social fragmentation based on parameter values. So for this particular model, it has been already revealed that if people are very homophilic with high H, the society tends to get fragmented like this. Very tiny clusters, mostly they're just one person talking to himself or herself. They're not really talking to each other. Sometimes you see very strong follower like this. The idea is represented entirely. It's very diverse, but connectivity is completely lost. And ironically, if people seek new information, novelty-seeking people, high A, attention to novelty, society gets cohesive, and they basically lose all the idea diversities. Everybody is connected to everybody else, talking to each other, saying, oh, that's great, that's great, that's great. But if you look at the entire society, diversity is completely gone. So this transition is very robust. If you change the parameter values, you still see this kind of transition. And we are not the first people to discover this. This has been documented and tested by using many different models for the last 2 decades or so. And we conducted large-scale parameter sweep simulations. You see here the phase diagrams. The horizontal axis is the homophily strength. Vertical axis is the attention to novelty strength. And then the 6 panels show different level of social conformity. So you are seeing the 3-dimensional phase diagram. And if you zoom in, for example, this one, it's clear that homophily and attention to novelty basically fight against each other. Homophily try to fragment the network, and attention to novelty try to homogenize the network. But if you look at the high social conformity region, you see a new behavior coming out. So there is a vertical phase plane coming out, especially when there is a low value of attention to novelty. So this region, especially this tiny blue region, this shows that there's a competition between social conformity and homophily. This is actually a very novel discovery we made. And this really means that the social conformity like this tiny boy is mimicking the behavior of those 2 adults. Definitely it's a propagation of behavior, node state, across the edges. The other side is a bird of feather effect. The feather pattern never changes, but they change the social proximity because of the similarity. This is node dynamics. This is edge dynamics. But if you are just a pure empirical researcher going outside to collect the data, they look almost the same. People nearby, they look similar. And there has been many documentations about the difficulty of distinguishing these 2 simply based on the data-driven pattern discovery research. It's very confounding to mechanisms. It's very difficult to distinguish between those 2 things. However, our model showed that mathematically they are actually in competition. So if the local similarity is created by node dynamics, it leads to the social homogenization. If the local similarity is driven by the edge dynamics, Instead, this has a complete opposite effect. So this is one of the reasons why people need to step back, not just looking at the data, but think through the mechanisms, why and how they observe the behaviors of systems are generated, because they may actually have very different outcomes and implications. And obvious application would be social media, like recommendation systems. If you are recommended with a specific content or opinion, so this is node dynamics. It promotes connection and homogenization. But if you are recommended to follow someone like this is the edge dynamics induced by the algorithm. This promotes the social fragmentation. Our mathematical model shows that that must be the case. These are the more in-depth studies done by my former student, Srinivas Pandey. If you want to learn more, please take a look at it. Okay, I'm going to wrap up by showing the one final discovery. So far, we have been seeing that society models can go either fragmented state or completely homogenized but connected states. This is social fragmentation transition. Is it possible to achieve the third state that did not appear in that kind of physics type of models? The answer is yes, but you need to consider something else. What we did in the final part of this talk is that so far we considered every entity, nodes, individuals are basically the same. What if they are different? Yet another diversity. I love the word diversity, so I try to sprinkle that word as many times as I can. If the agents, nodes, are very different from each other behaviorally, what is going to happen? So this is a collaboration with Seth Bullock at the University of Bristol. We basically ran the same simulation, but now the parameter C, H, and A are individually assigned instead of the entire system. And this is the difference between behavior heterogeneous agent behavior and behavior homogeneous agents behaviors. And in this visualization, we removed edges so that you can only see the node states. But still, the spatial arrangement is based on the spring embedding. So you can see invisible connections here. The homogeneous example basically shows the same behavior as before. The society gets basically one-dimensional. Opinion 1 and opinion 2, they show two extremes. But if the agents are behavior heterogeneous, they tend to keep the connection at the center. And then you see the much more connected, integrated network with more diverse opinions coming out. So this did not happen in the social fragmentation type of model. This is the third state we want to achieve. It's a different opinions represented in the society, but people are still talking to each other. And this is basically the summary of what we discovered by having this behavioral diversities. The heterogeneous behavioral models tend to have a more integrated, more connected structure, and the homogeneous one is more segregated. But opinion-wise, we have more extremists in the first case. If the behavior is diverse, the society remains connected. But if you look at the periphery, they tend to be more extremist. So diversity of idea is promoted because of the diversity of behaviors. Compared to that, behavior homogeneous networks tend to show more moderate opinion distributions. This is very interesting results. And here there are lots of statistical tests. We don't want to go through it, but basically we showed statistically that one condition is more fragmented than others, etc. Okay, and interesting thing is that basically the same findings was obtained by several other models we tested independently. This is yet another simulation model. We collaborated with Junichi Yamanoi. He is a management scientist in Waseda University in Tokyo. We discovered basically the same thing. If the behavior diversity is higher, then you start to see this kind of third state, which was not possible if the people's behavior is homogeneous. This is yet another crazy partial integral differential equation model, essentially trying to capture the same behaviors without going to the details. You still see the third state appears only if you have diverse behaviors. In this case, parameter D is the cultural tolerance. How much different culture you can tolerate, maintain the connections. So 3 different models, completely independent developed models, showed basically same results. So this gives us confidence. Even though we did not analyze any real-world data, which is not available, 3 different models show the same conclusion. This might be closer to reality. And finally, I just want to mention, there are locations in the social network that is partly determined by your behavior. So this is, again, the simulation coming from the previous model. People who tend to look for novelty, high attention to novelty people, they spontaneously come to the center. So these A's are nodes that has a high A value. They come here and then act as a connector. And people who love homophily, they tend to self-segregate from the main part. They live in the informationally the rural areas, and they take very different opinions. And there are many other discoveries we made. I'm going to skip, but behavior tend to influence where you're going to be ending up in the social evolution. And the final findings, this is a very new result produced by my PhD student, Akshay Gandgar. So he studied the individual experience. So without going much details, blue curves, the red curves, blue curves, and the light green curves, each of them is showing that how unpredictability of the life experience for each individual agent node is going to go over time. So red is homophilic nodes in across many different conditions. Nodes who has higher homophilic tendency, they tend to experience more unpredictability in their life. And ironically, people who are looking for the, stimulating new information, their life experience is always kind of flat. So they don't get as much unpredictable future compared to homophilic things. So this is irony. Homophilic people want to have peaceful, homogeneous, calm life. That's why they love homophilic relationships. And they are the ones that get the most eventful life. And compared to that, the individual who want to always seek, the stimulus, new things, they tend to get one of the more boring kind of life, which is very interesting result. Again, counterintuitive thing. Only becomes available if you run this kind of simulation. So this might give you a lot of life lessons, what you should do. Yeah, anyway, so I'm going to wrap up. So we studied the idea evolution in multiple settings. Idea may be the evolving entities, just like biological organisms. And because of that, the social network structure, the habitat structure, and also the each individual humans' functional diversity play a lot of influence in the idea evolution. And co-evolution between idea opinion dynamics and social network also leads to the very non-trivial outcomes. There might be the conflict between the individual intentions and the collective outcomes. So this is the signature move of complex systems. You can't really generalize by looking at the individual behavioral rules to what's going to happen at the system level. It's far from trivial. And finally, the behavioral diversity we showed by using multiple model, that might be the key ingredient if we want to achieve connected yet idea diverse society. And this is the whole hypothesis. We still need to get the real world data, but it's very scarce and unavailable at this point. With that, I'm going to thank my collaborators, funding agencies. Happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I started by introducing Hiroki, and I think he's demonstrated what I said. So let's have some questions.
Okay, I see a question from Len. Thank you very much. This has huge implications. How to plan a conference? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So Dirk Brockman's Complexity Explorables is amazing resources, and then some of the demonstration actually show the opinion dynamics. I'm not sure if he has the adaptive network type of simulation, but I can talk to him. We are close friends. So
Oh,
if there's
very good. I think
yeah.
that'd be really useful.
Yeah.
You'd be able to spell all of this out so anybody could just see it and connect it to what else is going on there. I think,
Yeah. Good suggestion. Thank you.
I really like that. And I mean, I immediately started, I can't wait to go back and look through this because I've been involved in this general systems theory conversation online, and it's just a mess. And it's interesting to look at the dynamics from this point of view. I could map it, you know? So thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
I know that each one of us has some kind of story that can make map to this kind of view. Anyway, yes, Brian.
Oh, thank you so much for this talk. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. I noticed in the one of the animations after looking at like a third kind of equilibrium, there's like the outer ring and then there's the inner cluster that's more stable, and there's like nodes moving between those. And I guess I'm wondering
Yeah.
about the nodes moving between the two groups, and are there ways of influencing more of those kind of connections or less, and what role they have?
Yeah, so those nodes that tend to come to the center are most likely people who are always looking for new kind of information. So we call it attention to novelty, or sometimes neophily, right? Neo means new and phily means love. So neophilic people tend to move from one side to another always, because if you listen to one side opinion, that becomes a norm, and then you are attracted to the other side. So they tend to oscillate in the middle. So that's why they come to the center and spontaneously playing a role of the social connectors between different camps. If that answers your questions.
I think so. Yeah, the ones that move like between the center and the outer ring, are there anything special about those? Are those the neophilic ones?
So I think those are the kind of the agents whose behavior parameters are taking somewhat, intermediate values. Sometimes they act like a more homophilic agent. Sometimes they are more, attracted to the center because of neophily, takes over. But they are like these people, their parameter value is probably somewhere in the intermediate.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Any other question? Happy to answer more or suggestions, or just say hello.
So,
I have a question.
Yes, Marcus.
Yes, how much heterogeneity you need to get this behavior? It's just a little.
That's a good question. So we did not sweep all the different levels of heterogeneity. We simply just had one condition which is completely homogeneous, and the other is just, reasonably heterogeneous. But we never tested crazily heterogeneous behavior diversities. But that's actually a good question. My guess is that if diversity is too much, structure might be very fuzzy, and you may not see clear structure. That's my random guess. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I see other.
in the chat. Yeah. Hiroki,
Yeah.
do you want to? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Burton asked, is there anything that I can say about how the generation of new ideas might relate to norm change? Yes, they definitely push the social norm, at least locally, to one direction or another, because always the new ideas are coming up in someone's brain. That's going to be shared with the local neighbors. And therefore, if the new idea is a little bit the outlier-ish, then that's going to push the local social norm to that direction as well. So there is a chicken and egg problem. Social norm determines the local dynamics of idea generation, but generated idea is going to be feeding into the local norm dynamics as well. And I see, another question. Let me read it. Given this information, if I want to incorporate many different perspectives and experience into developing a new area of the law, for example, yes. Okay. What is the best way to do that and have novel ideas that gain purchase? Okay. Does it depend on the people's behavior, e.g., whether they are novelty seekers or not? Yeah. And perhaps to have smaller similar background groups talk amongst themselves and then share their ideas with separate similar groups. The good insight. I stay value neutral. So I'm not going to say this is better, this is worse, because it really depends on your objectives. So I am the scientist. I don't want to go political. I'm the public servant. I'm a New York State employee. I should not say anything political. So if you have a clear objective to achieve, for example, if your objective is to maximize the diversity of generated ideas, yes, exactly what you suggested in the post is exactly what you should do. First, start with small, very homogeneous clusters, and you connect the people with a similar background so that they can explore many crazy directions and then bring them later. Or if you want to have very well-vetted, well-tested ideas, you should mix people together so that ideas produced by the collective tasks will not be so crazy. So again, I remain neutral. So it's really up to what you want to achieve.
There's one more question.
Yes, yes, from Lynn. The nodes have equal influence. In reality, some nodes might have much more influence over the others. Well, in this model, the connection weights, W, is different. So some people may spontaneously become like a hub. So their influence is not equal. Yeah. And another question from John. Following the previous question, how does this affect great man theory? I am not familiar with that theory. Could you elaborate more? What is that?
Yes. The fundamental idea is that people, I'm going to try to turn on recording, individuals, I mean, Hitlers, Trumps, etc., Genghis Khan, you have these people that are able to attract great followings so, I mean, it gets right to your point of non-homogeneity. But how on, I sort of think in power law distributions and then in terms of the homogeneity. But that's the fundamental idea.
Yeah. So now I understand. That kind of single person that attracts extraordinary popularity, I would say the mechanism for formation of such kind of pattern must be different than what we are studying. Here we are talking about the collective people, and then they exchange information more or less in the civil way. But the populism, for example, is appealing to the different kind of neural mechanisms. Here's a stimulus. Here's a message that is sensational that triggers some kind of behaviors in the people's brain. So it's a different kind of marketing strategy, in my opinion. I'm not really the expert of neurobehavioral science, but that's my guess. It's not purely based on the mutual information exchange and opinion dynamics formation. Yeah, they're a good strategy if you want to become popular.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we are coming close to the end. Do you want to take one last question, or should we?
Yeah. So maybe I can try Burton's question relating to norm change. He's thinking of work by Leanne Gabola on cultural evolution, which she relates to community exchange process. Okay, now let's keep moving because it's hard to follow. Collective exchanges can serve generally to stabilize ideas. Yeah. But at times they can also lead to the revolutionary changes. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Yes. I think we are reaching time.
Yep. I think we're at the time. Again, thank you, everyone. But thank you, of course, to Hiroki. Outstanding presentation. And we appreciate very much that you've joined us for this one. And we'll look forward to the next time.